Introduction. In the annals of criminal history, most cases are open and shut. A crime takes place, the police investigate, an arrest is made, and the accused is either acquitted or convicted of said crime. Some criminal cases make for interesting prime-time specials or cable network documentaries, but few invoke mysteries that persist for any length of time. But some crimes are so puzzling and perplexing that the mystery surrounding them takes on a life of its own. It is these mysterious crimes that often have the greatest impact on all involved. Crime in general has profound effects on the victim specifically and the greater society in general. Murders, in particular, leave behind gaping psychological wounds that often only begin to heal when the perpetrator is caught and convicted for his or her crimes. But what happens when the murderer is never identified? Or worse yet, what happens when the victim is never found, as if the person vanished into thin air? These are the type of crimes that tear at the social fabric of a community more than any other, crimes where a suspect is never identified, a body is never found, or a reason for the crime is never determined. The world is full of many mysteries, and within the pages of this book you will be introduced to 12 of the most intriguing and amazing mysteries in modern criminal history. Some of the cases here involve multiple crimes where coincidences seem to link what are otherwise unrelated cases. Investigation of these cases reveals that sometimes, although events may be creepy, they are in fact coincidences, while in other cases the jury is still out. A number of high-profile disappearances are also given consideration in the following pages. While a mysterious fog of uncertainty still hangs over one of these cases, excellent police work and modern science helped locate other missing individuals. Finally, this e-book considers a number of unsolved murder cases that were all but forgotten about and went cold, only to heat up and get resolved years, even decades, later through advances in science and new eyewitness testimony. The world is truly an amazing place full of many mysteries, which includes the criminal world, as you will see in this intriguing and exciting e-book. Chapter 1. A Killer Coincidence. The Mary Morris Murders. In the 1984 science fiction classic The Terminator, a murderous cyborg from the future played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, hunted women in Los Angeles named her in order to stop a woman with that same name from giving birth to a man who would kill the cyborg's masters in the future. The plot was totally outlandish and not meant to portray or emulate any real event or situation, but a pair of murders in Houston, Texas in 2000 shocked area residents, and to sci-fi fans it appeared to be a case of reality imitating art. In the span of less than 1 week, 2 women both named Mary Morris were murdered in eerily similar ways in Houston. Once the local media made the connections between the 2 women's names, then other connections were quickly made. The 2 women looked alike, the manner of their murders was similar, and their bodies were discovered in similar locations. With that many similarities, most people were convinced that the murders were somehow connected. Was a serial killer using the Terminator as an inspiration for his sick homicidal fantasies? The residents of Houston were on edge in the late months of 2000. Anyone could be the killer, and any woman named Mary Morris could be the next victim. Mary Henderson Morris. Mary Henderson Morris was a 48-year-old wife and mother who worked hard as a loan officer at Chase Bank in Houston. She and her husband had built a good life for themselves and lived in the reasonably affluent Houston neighborhood of Spring Valley. They were hardworking, successful people who were well liked by the neighbors, friends, and family. By all accounts, the couple had a good relationship and neither was involved in drugs or criminal activity, which makes this part of the case the most puzzling. The morning of October 12, 2000, began as any other in the Morris household. Mary woke up first, got ready for work, and left the house about 6 a.m. But Mary never made it to work. Mary's husband of 5 years, Jay, usually spoke with her several times during the day on the phone, so he began to worry when the afternoon came and he had yet to hear from his wife. Mary's daughter from a previous marriage, Marilyn Blaylock, and Jay filed a missing person report early that evening about the same time a burned car was discovered in a vacant field. A call was made to the Harris County Sheriff's Department at about 10 a.m. that morning about what was believed to be burning debris or leaves. Later in the day, police arrived at the wooded area to find that it was not debris or leaves that were burning, but an automobile. After the fire was put out, the sheriff's department determined that a charred female body was inside. It was the body of Mary Henderson Morris. The fire made it impossible for coroners to determine the method of death, although it was quickly ruled a homicide. A search revealed that Morris's purse and wedding ring were missing, which suggested robbery, but too many questions remained. If it were a robbery, why was her car not taken? Why would a robber, or robbers, go to such lengths to conceal part of their crime? The crime was obviously not a carjacking because the car was burned. Even if it were an attempted carjacking gone bad, there would have been no reason to take the car and its owner to a remote location, kill the owner, and then burn the car. And why was the car dumped and burned in a vacant lot? The more investigators looked at the case, the less it made sense. There were also no witnesses to her abduction or murder. Due to the circumstances, authorities quickly determined that this was no ordinary murder case, but little did they know how extraordinary the case would become. Just 4 days later, after the Morris family put Mary to rest on October 16, Blaylock made the painful, yet seemingly simple journey to the coroner's office to retrieve some of her mother's personal effects. Instead, she walked into an episode from The Twilight Zone. They told me they still had Mary Morris's body, recalled Blaylock. I was freaking out. I was thinking we just had the funeral. I saw the remains, and I was looking at something that wasn't even my mother. It turns out that the woman Marilyn Blaylock saw on the coroner's table was not her mother, but was in fact another woman named Mary Morris, Mary McGinnis Morris. Mary McGinnis Morris. In many ways other than just the name, Mary McGinnis Morris shared a number of similarities with Mary Henderson Morris, which makes this case all that more eerie. Although Mary McGinnis was a bit younger than Mary Henderson at 39 years old, both women were attractive, gregarious brunettes. Mary McGinnis was also a professional woman who shared a nice suburban home with her husband. On October 16, 2000, the Harris County Sheriff's Department found the body of Mary McGinnis Morris badly gunshot to her head in a location about 25 miles from where Mary Henderson Morris was found days earlier. Mary McGinnis was also found murdered in her car in a vacant lot in Harris County. Although the vacant lots were located on different ends of the county, both spots had an eerie familiarity. In life and death, the two women shared some uncanny similarities, which raised the obvious question, who would want to kill the two Marys? Suspects and theories. Although authorities were at a loss trying to find suspects and reasons for the murder of Mary Henderson Morris, they quickly zeroed in on two potential perps for the Mary McGinnis case. At the time of her death, Mary McGinnis worked as a nurse practitioner and medical director at Union Carbide in Houston. Her supervisors noted that she was a good employee who got along with all of her coworkers, and likewise almost all of her coworkers liked Mary, with the exception of one, Dwayne Young. Dwayne Young was a nurse who worked alongside Mary, and as their time working together progressed, he apparently became obsessed with her. Young's obsession with Mary began innocently enough. He hung around her desk at work and engaged her in conversation whenever he could. The behavior at first seemed to Mary McGinnis to be more of a puppy love type situation than that of an obsessed maniac, but eventually Young's facade of a lost puppy dog was lifted to reveal the stalker that he was. As Young's menacing looks and comments towards Mary reached a creepy crescendo, she found the words, "Death to her," scrawled on her desk calendar. After numerous complaints to her bosses about Young's inappropriate and borderline illegal behavior, which was verified by coworkers, the stalker nurse was fired on October 13, just 2 days before Mary disappeared. The note scrawled on Mary's desk proved to be the last straw.